All right, Shalom. Welcome to another Expert Insight interview. My name is John Golden from Sales Pop, online sales magazine, and Pipeliner CRM, joining you as usual from a sunny San Diego. And today, I'm delighted to be joined by Dan Leonardi, who is in beautiful Auburn in Alabama. How you doing, Dan?
I'm doing great, War Eagle. That is our battle cry out here.
It is. What did you say? It's what is it?
It's
War
it's
Eagle.
a War Eagle. It is the
War
old
Eagle. I
battle
like it.
cry of Auburn University.
Yeah, well, yeah, a very well known and fine university, good and good reputation in football, etc. Right? Yeah,
Indeed.
yeah. And Dan, you're a career strategist, personal development coach, and founder of Leonardi Personal Development. Over 45 years experience in consumer packaged goods. You've worked with top brands like PepsiCo, Kellogg Company, Conagra, leading multi-million-dollar business units and high-performing teams. Now you help students and professionals bridge the gap between education and real-world success. And you published the book there behind you, Be
Yeah,
the
yeah,
CEO of Your Life, came out on April 1st, so brand new. So we'll have that listed below here. So go check that out. And that's what we're going to talk about, how to be the CEO of your life. So how to take charge of how taking charge of your career can improve your mental and physical health. So, Dan, just give me a little bit of the background to the book, because I love the approach here about mental and physical health, because I'm a big believer in mind and body, and don't and it's one of the issues that I've always had with the way we practice Western medicine is you get a pain in your leg, you go to your GP. You get mental problems, you go somewhere else, but never the twain shall meet. So just talk to me a little bit about the background and genesis of the book.
yeah. I think it was more of I wish somebody had shared these techniques and concepts with me when I was starting out my career. Unfortunately enough, I dropped out of college, went and drove a truck for Pepsi. And, at 20 years old, I'm trying to find myself. And along the way, the, being gifted by just listening to people, building relationships, and experiencing things that the next 10 years of my life really allowed me to start to gather notes of what worked, what didn't work, just by listening. And ultimately, I drew upon those experiences at 30 years old to really get my career going, getting off the trucks. But I've always had a burning desire that the system may have not wanted to help a person like me out. I was more of a visual learner,
Mm-hmm.
so more of a tactile learner. And I think back in the 60s and 70s, they were more uh, educating towards that audio style. And then
Yeah.
suddenly it occurred to me that there's another way of learning. And just by watching other people, I really picked up some really good techniques.
Yeah, and I mean it's a great time for a book like yours, because I feel like a lot of people feel like their life and their careers happen to them, and they don't have control over it, or they don't feel like they can make much impact on it. They kind of feel trapped. So how do you advise people to begin that process of taking charge? Because it sounds great, I'm going to take charge of my life, but then you actually have to take charge of it. Like, how do you even start that process?
Yeah, and that's a really great question. Is for me, it was looking at life into three stages. And one of the things I talk about at our company, Leonardi Personal Development, is take the pressure off yourself when you're finishing up college. Because we all know, I'm sure,
Mhm.
John, like you might have multiple jobs in those first 10 years when you got out of school. And with social media today, we're looking at everybody else's lifestyles and
Yeah.
it looks better than ours.
Mhm.
And what I tell students as I travel around the colleges is take the pressure off yourself. If you think about your life, think about it in three stages. And I call it the three stages of life that I touch on in chapter 2. And it is this. It is in the first 20 to 30, first stage. I call that is when we create wealth of knowledge.
Right.
Take the pressure off yourself, go and listen to everybody. And I did just that when I got off the trucks. And
Mhm.
when I went into management, that 20 to 30, I took the pressure off myself and I said, I'm just going to listen. I'm going to experience things and I'm going to fail. I'm going to make
Mhm.
mistakes. I might have, 10 different jobs, but I'm not going to focus on anybody else but me. And then when I hit my 30th birthday, that's when we call you create financial wealth. So
Mhm.
everybody thinks that you have to create all this wealth and I have to be rich. Definition of rich is there's many different things, but
Sure.
monetarily rich, I have to make it when I'm 24, 25, and if I don't do it, I'm a failure. The game is on when you turn 30, and that's
Mhm.
when creating financial wealth in between 30 and 40 is a magical time period. That's where you take all those experiences and those relationships that you built in your 20s and 30s and you really put it to work. And then the
Mhm.
last stage of it is 40 plus. And I call that the time of compounding. That's when we
Right.
take everything that we've done from 20 to 40 and make it work. But you have
Yeah.
to think about it ahead of time. So, John, when I go and speak at colleges or I mentor college students, it's fascinating to watch their faces and their eyes light up because, as simple as I just said that to you and your audience, you all got it.
Yeah.
There's nothing dramatic about it except putting it in buckets in the three
Yeah.
ways that I just outlined.
Yeah, and I love that because yeah, I mean, I see that today. I mean, I guess it was always like that, but the pressure's even more today. I see like everybody, as you said, with comparison culture thinks. I mean, you hear the kids thinking like, I have to be earning $250,000 by the time I'm 21 in order to survive in this world, and you're going, yeah, that's going to happen. Um, but also like unless and I think that's part of it is like unless you from an early age you decide you want to be an attorney or you want to be a doctor and you have your whole life mapped
Mm,
out or whatever and you go to college, the majority of people don't. And I think what you're saying there is instead of being, you know, kind of paralyzed by fear about, oh, I'm finishing college or I'm in my early 20s and I don't know what I'm doing, is to embrace that as a period of learning.
yeah. Yeah, think about your audience out there, and I'm sure there's one or two or, hundreds of people out there that might feel like I just got my education and what do I do now? I've got to go I don't have an internship. I
Mhm.
got to
Yeah.
go interview for a job. I have nothing. Nothing. What what I like to also mention and bolt on to the three stages of life is simply the 70-20-10 rule. I wish I could take credit for it, but it's out there. But it hit me like a ton of bricks when somebody mentioned it to me. And I make sure that I bring it up all the time when I'm speaking to students. And it's 70%, 20%, 10%. Which one of the following is going to be 70%? Which one is going to be 20%? And which one's going to be 10%? Education, relationships, or experience? Now, most students will say education because that's all they know.
Mhm.
Think about I'm graduating, I'm a senior in college. I've gone through elementary school, high
Yeah,
school,
yeah.
college. I've got like 16 years of this stuff just
Mhm.
getting jammed down my throat. And John, the answer is it's only 10%.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Just think about that. If I use a metaphor of an Auburn football field as an example, you're only at the 10-yard line. Hate to tell you,
Yeah.
John, you're not at the red zone 10-yard line. You have 90 more yards to go in your life. That's the good news.
Yeah, and I think it's I love your messaging because I think you know people put themselves under so much pressure, especially in those years, as opposed to looking at it as a one. I mean, those are probably. I mean, those. You know, I look back on mine like those are terrible years for getting good jobs. I grew up in Ireland during recession, everything, and all that. And as you said, I mean, like you, I mean, I did different jobs and not always jobs I wanted to do or whatever, but I still look back on that period as like we had a great time. I had so many experiences. It was a time that helped me become who I am today. But if you looked at it in isolation, you would have just said, well, you didn't really have any good jobs and you were just running around having a good time. And you go, okay. But the combination of those experiences allowed me to forge the career I've had since.
Brilliant. I mean, just the way you outlined it, I'm sure, if there's a crowd out there in the audience that is looking at it and saying, "Oh my God, what John just said is me. I'm 45 years old, and that is exactly my life. That's exactly my life. That's
Mhm.
just the way it goes. That piece of the experience is really the 70% of it.
Yeah.
That's where you get all your key learnings, and that to me was kind of a V8 moment, a aha moment that
Hmm.
I just when I heard it, I was like, God, it was so simple, so common sense, but I guess we just don't hear things like that often that are that profound.
Yeah, and I think also when I'm sure it's the same as when you consult and you mentor people. I mean, I've had it sometimes with people. Okay, we say they come to and say, "Oh, I want to put a resume together. I want to try and get a better job or whatever." They say, but the trouble is, like, I don't really have much to offer. And then you go, well, let's go back and look at all your experiences, and you then
Mm.
and they see it in a new light when you look at what you did here. You survived this. Sometimes surviving something is in and of itself is a massive achievement, right? and and therefore you've had and say look at it, and when people look back with the different lens and go, yeah, you're right, like I have done quite a lot and I've had a lot more experiences, they start to realize, just like you say, that our lives are full of so full of rich experiences that sometimes we overlook them and we overlook the lessons they've given us.
Speaking of lessons, y- if someone said to you, John, you're just the luckiest guy in the world. You might have done something. What I tell the students, or even my range, my target group is 20 to 35. So anybody within that group, and it can even be
Mhm.
beyond, is if somebody said, "Hey Dan, you're the luckiest guy in the world," I would take it as an insult. And here's the reason why. And this is what we share in the book, or even at our company, is we want you to create your own luck. And it gets to the point
Mhm.
that you just made, John, is you have to prepare yourself for that resume.
Yeah.
When you graduate college, you're going to have to put it together. Why wouldn't I work in advance to build that resume as bold and as rich as the person sitting next to me who I'm going to compete with? And one of the techniques that we talk about in the book and in our company is we want you to create your own luck. We don't
Mhm.
want you just to be lucky. When you create your own luck, you've actually done something to make that happen. And your point about the resume is a really good example of just that.
Yeah, yeah, no, and I love that about, creating your own luck, and being, as I said earlier on, I think too many people allow life to happen to them instead of like saying, I have influence over this. I mean, and that's why, I mean, in the age range you're talking about, yeah, it seems like, maybe you don't have a lot of money, maybe you're not in the job that you want, maybe you're perceived, maybe there was people you're in school with who are super successful now, whatever. It doesn't matter, that it's not your life, right? That's someone else's. As long as you're I think as long as you're open to the journey, and I think that's the thing, is like to know where you're going at 25 is, I think that's such a big ask, or at 20,
It is.
25, I think that's such a huge ask, and it's a ridiculous pressure to put on people. I had this conversation down with somebody quite recently, like a father of a kid who's in their early 20s, and he was kind of saying, like, oh, because I was saying, like, oh, I love seeing his stuff. He's always out there. He's DJing. He's doing all this stuff. It's really cool. And his dad was saying, yeah, but I wish he had more of a direction and path in life. And I said, that doesn't matter. He'll find it. He'll find it. And I think that's the thing, is like is to let people, to embrace that journey and to take a little bit of the pressure off. I mean, don't obviously don't say, yeah, you can just mess around for the rest of your life, but uh sort of to have your whole life mapped out so young, that for me is just
Yeah.
unrealistic for 99% of people.
John, it's funny that you just brought up parents. I have a lot of parents come up to me because they're looking for a third party.
Hmm.
And they're looking for a third party because I can't connect with my child.
Yeah.
It's not that your child doesn't love you. In fact, it means that your child does in fact love you. The problem is that they're so busy trying to prove to you of what they can accomplish doing it on their own. And the other side of it is I found that the parents sometimes can be the roadblock as well because they're trying to make the child be what they are through their lens. And it gets back to what you just said is you have to find it yourself. That's what we call our company. Our mantra is be the CEO of your life.
Hmm.
Be the CEO for the simple fact is it's your life. You surround yourself with a board of directors,
Hmm.
advisors throughout your life. John, if you have a toothache, you're the CEO of your life. Your mom, your dad, as much as they love you, can't take care of that toothache.
Hmm.
So that metaphor, that whole mantra of connecting and giving that visual picture of you are the CEO of your life. Go get them.
Yeah. And what I like about that, Dan, is that the emphasis on that, your life, because I do feel like a lot of times we take on a life that we think is expected of us rather than our own life. Instead of saying, it's like that saying, I should be in this position by now, or I should be here by now, or I should be doing this. And a lot of times it's because maybe that's a family expectation, maybe that's the expectation of the demographic, the social, your social, whatever, your social network that you're in or whatever. and and before you know it, you lose yourself because you're always trying to please these external audiences.
Yeah, just take the pressure off yourself. Be who you are. Everybody has a purpose.
Hmm.
Everyone. The problem may be is we get lazy.
Yeah.
We may to use a phrase that you used earlier is we just want to survive. We don't know really what we want to accomplish. And in my advice is I think that's one of the reasons why I've retired. And at 68 years old, um, this is my turn to give back.
Hmm.
And I want students or individuals that are trying to find themselves to help them to find that purpose. Again, I'll say it over and over again. Take the pressure off yourself. You were put on this earth for a reason. There's a
Hmm.
purpose out there. You just might need help to find that purpose.
Right.
But when you do, just like you did, just like I did, when it clicked, it was magic and it
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah, and that is a great, and it may not be what, and the great part about it may not be what you expected it to be. I mean, maybe you thought you were going to be this like high powered whatever doing this, but then you discover being a parent was your purpose.
Mm.
That was way, that's what gives you the greatest satisfaction, what gives you greater, or something else. But so I think part of it, Dan, isn't it, is like taking the pressure off, but just always being open as well, being open to new experiences, new options and ideas, and being open to the fact that maybe your purpose in life is something that you haven't uncovered yet, or maybe it's going to be something completely surprising to you.
Or maybe it's somebody out there that you meet in that relationship, in
Yeah.
that 20% bucket. Like for me, it was Jim Maloney. Jim Maloney was an executive for Pepsi. He he was like in the elite executive team. The common denominator for this 18-year-old kid that watched this man
Hmm.
And suddenly he became my role model. Was he quit college. And then at 20 years old, I made the decision to quit college. And the
Hmm.
reason why I quit college and I knew I would make it was because I had Jim Maloney.
Right.
I had somebody that I could look at that gave me the inspiration that said, if he could do it, and if he could sit in the boardroom at Pepsi, why can't I? And here
Hmm.
I am, I get to work for great companies like Pepsi and Kellogg's, and you know, have the opportunity to manage hundreds of people at Kellogg's and a large $500 million business unit in my career. How does that happen? And that's what we share is these techniques. There's nothing rocket science about this, but these are 35 plus years of techniques that I actually wrote down.
Yeah.
And last year I retired, and my wife is looking at me, and Sweet Sue says, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm outlining the 35 years of what I've done." And lo and behold, it ended up to the outline was the outline of the book.
Yeah, yeah, and it's so fantastic that you're doing this, and especially working with people in that younger age range, because that's a difficult time in life, and that's it's a time when there's a lot of stresses, mental health issues, suicide and stuff. It's a big issue, so anything to help people through that period, I think is fantastic undertaking.
It is indeed.
Yeah. So if you would like give one last piece of advice, to anybody listening out there who maybe somebody's there going like, I just don't know my purpose. How do I discover my purpose? I don't know. That seems like a great thing to do. I've just no idea where to start.
Well, one of the things would be is besides all the things that we've talked about is establish what your playbook is. Understand, why am I doing something? What is it that I need to do? And how do I do it? I call that the playbook. The
Hmm.
playbook is vision, strategy, and tactics. So when somebody says, well, what's your vision? Well, all you have to do is ask yourself, why am I doing that? When you answer the question of why am I doing something, it's always going to lead you to the vision.
Hmm.
Strategy, which is the one I look at, John, when I'm, I guess my um, joy in the working world and my professional world over the 35 years is if your company was working great and it's operating on all cylinders, you do not want me near that. However, if it's broken, I just love broken companies. And that's kind of where my forte is. And what I found in every one of those companies, I used this playbook. Every time I walked into a company, it was the same thing. What's the vision? What are we trying to do in this business unit or this company? What's the strategy and what's the tactics? And what I found was 100% of the time, everybody knew kind of what the vision was. Everybody knew what the tactics were of how
Yeah.
we're going to do it. John, what was amazing, but it was easy for me to fix it. All I had to do was just figure out the strategy. Once I
Hmm.
aligned the company and the team from the top to the bottom, get everybody aligned on what is it that we really want to accomplish, magic happened. It
Yeah.
was
No.
amazing.
And I love that, and I love that you've ended with strategy, Dan, because it's one of my favorite things. It's one of my favorite quote actually is from Sun Tzu, and you'll resonate with that, where it's strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. And I always love that because I do think there we run through, and you'll see this in every company you work through, but you'll see it in life as well. That people are running, always run to straight into execution, like before establishing what the
Yeah.
strategy really is. It's like you come up with the idea, and everybody immediately is going, "Yeah, we could do this, and then we do this," and when instead of going, "Yeah, hold on a second, let's talk about why,
Well,
why
that's what
we're
we
doing
do
that."
at that's exactly what we do at our company is we teach you how to ultimately execute.
Hmm.
And that's really the missing piece. And one closing note, I'll
Yep.
just put a cherry on top of the opportunity and thank you and your audience so much, is the most important thing is money always comes by default of what we do. If
Yep.
you go out there and you're just going out there just to make money, you're just surviving.
Hmm.
It's ultimately what's the legacy that we leave behind. And everything that we do is what's that eulogy? What's that legacy that I'm going to leave whatever company I was working at, all those associates that were so valuable to my wife, to my
Hmm.
two sons, to my family and friends. What is the legacy that I'm going to leave behind?
Yeah, that's beautifully put, Dan. And there's never, and you're building your legacy every day, right? I mean, everybody is. We all are either building a good one or a not so great one. It's up to you. All right. Well, listen, all of Dan's information will be below this video, including the links to the book, Be the CEO of Your Life. And before we go, Dan, please do remind people what you do.
So I am a life coach, a mentor. I mentor at Auburn University at our new venture accelerator in our business school, and travel around to colleges speaking and sharing this message. And if anyone's looking to bridge those gaps, if your life is stalled, if you feel like you just need that push, whether you're a parent, grandparent, or student athlete, or just a student or a professional, give us find us on the web at Leonardi Personal Development, and we'll be thrilled to help you to be the CEO of your life.
Yeah, and listen, I just want to underline that about coaching and mentoring. It's one of the fantastic things that is so available to us today. I mean, it was available always. It was just maybe a little harder because you didn't have access to people. You've so much access. As I would say to people, you probably invest money in your hobbies. How about investing money in the thing that puts bread on your table?
Wow. Amen.
Yeah. All right. Listen, thanks again, Dan. Thank you for watching and listening, and I'll see you all again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, John.